Hi, this is Jim Cunningham. We have a great webinar, 8 important things to discuss at the dinner table and some things not to discuss. Great content. Hope you enjoy it. Hi, this is Jim Cunningham. We're going to talk about 8 important things to discuss or think about discussing, I should say, at the Thanksgiving table. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. We have a fair number of subscribers, but it's great if you subscribe. It pops up in your feed and you'll see these videos. We do them about once a week, more or less. What is Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving is a uniquely American holiday. We'll talk a little bit about that. It doesn't matter where you come from in the world, if you're born in the United States or born outside of the United States and are now American. This is a great opportunity for everyone to come together as Americans and give thanks. And that's really what it's all about. So some important things to consider at this time of year. Remember, most people are going to be meeting with family either at Thanksgiving or at the December holidays, whichever holidays you celebrate. And things that pop up, these are kind of natural things to think about, certainly with aging family members, is long-term care and long-term care insurance. We're going to cover that. We're going to talk about some family-driven support, and maybe you're the type of family who sits around and says, "Look, we're going to commit some of our income or some of our assets to charity, and what does that look like? Where should it go?" And we'll talk about estate plans and triggers on updating an estate plan, and then we do have some end-of-year tax planning that's covered on other webinars. But I would say it's the exception that families deal with this in truly a cooperative way. So if you're one of those families, congratulations to you. But there are a lot of things that people just don't talk about. Maybe they're taboo subjects. You do have the opportunity to make your family really what we would call a savvy exception to the rule that most people don't really get this, really talk about these things. Next week, we're going to talk about business owners, key estate and tax planning issues. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you might have just seen this webinar and now you're going to one back in time. It's a little bit weird if you're watching this live, but great webinar. There's a QR code. If you'd like to go ahead and sign up for that, you can hit the QR code. We do these live. They are recorded. They're on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, this isn't just me talking into a microphone. There are actually people watching this. So I'm a partner at Cunningham Legal, 25 years experience as a lawyer. We have offices throughout California. I'm a certified specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law, which there aren't many. I think there are almost 200,000 lawyers and about 1,000 are certified specialists. So 0.5% of lawyers are certified in this area, very important area. I happen to be a real estate broker. I don't sell any real estate, and I'm securities and insurance licensed, but don't sell any securities. And I am a pilot single engine land. And these are the lawyers at our firm. Some of these lawyers are licensed in California. Many of them are licensed in other jurisdictions. And so we do cover other states. So if you're outside of California and need some help, feel free to reach out to us. This is a big disclaimer. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. Don't watch this and go, "Well, I saw Jim say blah, blah, blah," and go out and do a bunch of stuff. That you really do need legal advice. We're talking about some very important concepts. There's some things that aren't legal that we're going to talk about, but a lot of what we're talking about is legal, and you really do, you do need legal guidance on that. So for those of you who know this, Thanksgiving, it's kind of pilgrim kind of thing, 400 years ago. But really the modern Thanksgiving originated during the Civil War. And as I was preparing for this, I was thinking about, I have ancestors who fought in the Civil War on both the North and the South side. And what a horrible time, right? I mean, think about it, 1863, the middle of the Civil War, and Abraham Lincoln, and he wrote a proclamation, and he asked, really invited all Americans to ask God to commend to his tender care all those who have become widows, orphans, mourners, or sufferers in the lamentable civil strife, and to heal the wounds of the nation and restore it to the full enjoyment of peace, harmony, tranquility, and union. I think those words are maybe more relevant now than they have been in many, many years. And really, this is a time to pause, and it's a time to give thanks. And then, of course, 70 years later, Franklin Roosevelt moved that holiday a week to spur retail sales. They called it Franksgiving. People kind of got mad at it. And then he made Thanksgiving the 4th Thursday in November, and it's remained there ever since. So very important holiday for Americans. It's a great time to stop and really reflect. So let's talk about things not to discuss at the Thanksgiving table. Parenting advice. I'm the worst offender. I've got adult children. I don't have grandchildren yet, but it's a little bit like relationship. Like, where are you? Is there anyone out there that looks promising? So fertility, obviously, you really don't want to talk about that. I mean, imagine you're with friends here. Well, friends literally from the show. But you've got friends here. I'm not sure you really want to discuss that. Diets, probably the worst time to discuss calorie intake. Politics, real hotbed, I suppose, unless you're all of one mind and you can all kind of get energized by that. But we live in this era of very divisive political situation. And, people are moving to different parts of the country to be aligned with politics. So that can be a really dicey topic. Religion, of course, if everyone's of the same mind, that's one thing. But if you have people of different faiths, it can be kind of tough. And I would say work, a lot of people are so consumed by work, it's all they can talk about. If you're one of those people who's totally consumed by work, maybe you need to just set that aside and not really make that a topic. Think about, I'm not telling you what to do, but these are just things to think about. And then finances, sort of the irony on that is estate planning is a lot about finances. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But in terms of finances, I would say that, talking about other people's finances, probably a bad idea. Talking about your own may be appropriate. And as we go through the materials, you'll see why it may be appropriate. So what are some things to discuss? Gratitude, food, right? Hey, how many pies did people bring? Travel. Did someone get back from a cruise? Has someone had a great vacation? A lot of people are traveling now. If you've taken a vacation recently, you've noticed that there are hardly any business travelers anymore. It's all people taking vacations. I suppose they're working on their vacation. Who knows? Sort of the work from home, work from vacation. Health and wellness, but I would keep it in the sense of not your poor health, but health and being fit and wellness and that sort of thing. But keep it lighthearted. And then entertainment. What are people watching? Netflix is an interesting one because there's so many shows on Netflix, but really finding something in common to talk about with people. So what we're going to cover here are what I would characterize as 8 important things really to think about discussing. Now, this may be at the table. This may be when the football game's on and you're talking to people. It may be in the kitchen. It may be a one-on-one. It may be a group discussion. Obviously, you're going to have to use your own best judgment on that. But really, we're going to cover gratitude, and I think that's really the central theme. And that is really something that expressing gratitude generates a lot of good emotions, a lot of endorphins. Expressing gratitude for other things. Okay, this is not you soliciting gratitude for having the great things that you've done for people. And part of gratitude, and I put this in a separate category, is telling people all the good things that you think about them. And one of the things is this may be, may not, this may be the last Thanksgiving you spend with somebody, right? Because we don't know what happens in the world. We just don't know. People may move away, they may pass away, they may be mentally not able to to enjoy a Thanksgiving. So views on finances, again, I said, don't talk about finance. Don't talk about really your own or other people's finances, but your views on finances. And we'll kind of discuss that. Medical wishes. You really should take the time at a holiday to look at who the decision makers are in your estate plan. So who is your trustee? We'll talk about what a trustee is. Who's your trustee and executor? You really should be paying attention to that at least annually on your own. And the holidays is a great time to do it because that's typically when you see many of the people who you might name as a trustee, right? Or an executor. You're actually seeing those people. And then you can sort of reassess, is this the right person for that role? And then the importance of your estate plan. I'll discuss what that is. We'll also talk about long-term care and then your personal effects. So gratitude, how, when I think people say it's important to express gratitude, and I'm just going to have a couple of examples here. We have 2 questions. Homa said, I read your book and fascinated how much I didn't know. Well, thank you, Homa. And then Homa asks, is converting a traditional IRA to an IRA trust a tax triggering event? The IRA trust happens, Homa, when you pass away, that money goes from your IRA to your IRA trust. And that is potentially a taxable event. And there's a whole bundle of rules around that. And we do planning in a way to spread that tax liability over time. Do you have referrals for long-term care disability insurance? Pitfalls, yes. And we can give you, there'll be in some notes and some materials here on who you can contact. I started my living trust with an attorney, paid half, but haven't signed the trust papers to investment property conversion deeds. If I switch to you, how much do you charge? We're actually doing a webinar next year on how much we do charge. Is it better if you finish with the current attorney and come to you for peer review or let the half go and start fresh? I would just make an appointment with us and we'll show you how to do that at the end, Homa. But you can just call us or go onto our website and arrange a time and have a conversation. I think that's really where it starts. Lawyers in California, if you are represented by a lawyer, it is unlawful for a lawyer, or it's unethical for a lawyer to solicit a represented party. So I would just leave it up to you. I'm not soliciting you. This is a question, and you asked how to reach out to us, but certainly you could call us. So gratitude. How do we express gratitude? How do you start? Well, you can say, I can't thank you enough for whatever it is, or words can't express how much you mean to me, or I'm eternally grateful. I'll never forget your support and kindness when I was in need. And these are moments when you say to yourself, wow, this is really amazing, or how great is this? It's so great that everyone's here. And the example I give is my uncle. And my uncle, a couple Thanksgivings ago, got up at the table and went on for a very long. I was not there. He lived in Texas, and he was with I have family in Texas, and he was with his family, and he's a very successful businessman, a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. And he told his wife how lucky he was to be married to her and the 2 kids. And that weekend he passed away. So I didn't think I would be emotional, but you never know, right? You just never know. So you can write your appreciation too, right? You don't have to say it. You can write it. It was really kind of you to do thus and such. It really helped me out when you did this. You did a big favor for me. These are expressions of gratitude. And, you can do kindness. So there are the 5 love languages. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but, acts of kindness, acts of service. You can, some people really feel it when you do something for them, and that's really paying it forward. So that's really a great way to express gratitude. All right. So the second thing to talk about is tell people all the good things. So this is kind of the flip side of gratitude, right? So you're grateful for other people and what, the impact that person's had on your life, but it's also a great time to tell people all the good things you think about them, right? Like I mentioned with my uncle, life is short. We don't know how long we're on this earth, right? We simply don't know. And this could be the last Thanksgiving you spend. I don't want to be morbid about this, but it's just reality. And this happened in my own family. My uncle is somebody I knew my whole life, right? He used to hold me up when I would pretend to be Superman, and he would, a great guy. So this could be the last Thanksgiving. Tell them the positive things you think about them, but you really haven't said. So I know a lot of us, everyone has great qualities. I mean, not everyone, I suppose, but most people have great qualities. But I think too often people hear the negative in life. You should have done this. You didn't do as well on that. So people a lot of times hear the negative and they don't hear the positive. It's just the way the world is. So this is a great time to really express how you truly feel about somebody. And, I respect you for doing this, or, I love that you did that, or whatever it is. And this is something that's totally appropriate at a dinner table. And, maybe it's even a thing where you go around and in our family, we express what are we grateful for, this year, or what's happened in our lives. So, we've been through collectively as a society a couple of really difficult years. And, we probably all know someone who's passed away in the last 2 or 3 years from whatever, whatever it is, or maybe someone's having a really difficult health issue. So we need to be grateful for what we have, even though it may not be much, right? It may be a lot, and I'm not talking about money, but it's very important to express gratitude. It's very healthy. So views on finances. So I do, this is kind of becoming a theme. And if you watch these webinars, you've heard me talk about this before. Money means different things to different people. Now, some people, and these are perfectly valid. Okay. So for some people, they say, it's my money. I'm not sharing it with anyone. I worked hard. I don't want to spoil my kids. I think that they should work hard. And sometimes the kids say, Mom and Dad, don't give me stuff. I was meeting with a client this week, and the client said, my child does not want me to give them stuff. They want to do it on their own. So money means different things to you. It means something different to you. It means something different to your children. It means something different to your neighbor, to me, to your, maybe even your spouse, right? And so some people say it's mine. The next generation, they're not going to benefit it until I leave this earth. Some people have a broader view, and they see family wealth as just that. It's for the family. And it's not to spoil people or to ruin people, but it's to better their lives of your loved ones, right? So if you are blessed with material abundance, and I'm not putting a number on that because it's relative, right? And you have this mindset of, I want to help these other people out. We live in California. It's a very expensive place to live in California. If you have a son or daughter who really wants to be a kindergarten teacher, and you happen to live in an area where every home is at least $2 million, and you want to live reasonably close to your children, if you have a mindset of really abundance and of family wealth, there are mechanisms to help that child buy a home. And we covered that in last week's webinar. So how to help a child buy a home. So it's okay sometimes to express your view on finances, but be tasteful, right? And so, and it may be the time, if you're thinking about helping your child buy a home, that's something you may want to discuss with them at the holidays. Like, hey, I'd really like you. I know you guys are looking for a home, and I'd really like to help. And I saw Jim's video, and there's a way we can do it. And let's talk about that. So it's okay to talk about finances. Again, this may not be a dinner table conversation. I guess it depends on how big the table is. But again, I want to validate, if your view is, look, it's mine until the bitter end, that's perfectly acceptable. And if you have the opposite view, which is, this is family money, that is perfectly acceptable as well. So both are perfectly valid. All right, medical care wishes. So this has come up in my family. My mother-in-law passed away a couple of years ago, and my father-in-law is now 90, and he is living in assisted living. We'll talk about a little bit about that later. He needs some help with his activities of daily living, and he's got some health issues that he really can't live alone. So the holidays are a great time to look at your medical directives. And if you're a Kaiser patient, okay, I'm not going to pick on Kaiser. I'm just going to tell you a fact. Kaiser has their own advanced healthcare directive. So if you're a Kaiser patient and you're a Kaiser patient in Southern California, it's a different healthcare directive than the Northern California version. I don't know why. It's one state. Go figure. Who knows? But that typically, when you go into a Kaiser hospital, they have you, or Kaiser, if you're going to have something done, then they're going to have you do a new healthcare power of attorney. And what this healthcare power of attorney is, it's also known as an advanced healthcare directive. If you're not a Kaiser patient, you can have a lawyer draft one. The California Medical Association has their own form. I think you can buy the form for $1, which, it sounds like I'm talking about something out of the 90s. You think you could just download a PDF. There's a statutory form, advanced healthcare directive. That's what we use in our law firm. We use the statutory form, meaning California has created a form for people to fill out that says who what their medical wishes are. So you name a person in your advanced healthcare directive, so that when you are unable to make healthcare decisions for yourself, somebody else makes those healthcare decisions. Now, it's very important to pay attention who that person is, because that may change from time to time. Many times people will tend to choose somebody who is reasonably close geographically. So if you have somebody who has to get on a plane to come see you, right? Some people say, well, I don't like that. I'd rather have somebody that's close. But bear in mind that that person's going to be in charge of your healthcare decisions. So this is really something you should talk to. You can talk to a lawyer about it. You may be able, I don't know that a physician's really going to be helpful. The form is pretty self-explanatory, but this is really something that you should work through with your lawyer, because your lawyers are trained to unpack this. It's like, okay, well, you want to name your son. Where does your son live? Your son lives in Washington, D.C. What does he do? Oh, he's out of, he serves in the military, and he's on a submarine 6 months out of the year. It's probably not a good person to pick, because they can't even talk to people. So, it's really kind of case specific. The Advanced Healthcare Directive is a legal document. It is not a medical order. So the Advanced Healthcare Directive says, if I can't decide for myself, then this other person decides. The HIPAA authorization is a document that says this person has access to my healthcare information, but not decision-making. So there are two issues here. One is who's going to decide. The second one, and it's only if you can't decide. The second one is who has access to your medical information. Now, you may want, if you've named a successor trustee, you may want that trustee to have access to your medical information to get a doctor's note to say that you're incapacitated, right? If you become incapacitated, or as we like to say, you get hit by the cement truck and don't die, right? But you're unable to care for your own affairs, then, then this person steps in. This trustee steps in on your living trust, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the key there is they may need some medical information that's confidential, and you may want to give that person access to your health information. or not. Again, this is very case specific. And then also, end of life decision making. This is this is a tough one. This can be a very emotional topic with family members. If it's appropriate, when everyone's there, and it's, this is why we're doing this, because families typically come together at the Thanksgiving holiday or one of the December holidays, depending on which faith you are. And there's even another holiday at the beginning of the Chinese New Year, right? When people do come together. So that is kind of a good time to talk to people and say, look, if I'm a goner, pull the plug or whatever it is, and make that clear with your family. This can be kind of an uncomfortable discussion, but I think it's helpful because these are taboo subjects. And then I saw with my wife and her brothers, when these decisions were coming up with her mother, no one really even discussed this. And my wife is married to me. I'm an estate planning attorney. No one discusses this stuff, right? Because it's a taboo subject, but I think it merits a discussion, even though it may be uncomfortable. I do want to mention a POLST. A POLST is a physician's order regarding life-sustaining treatment. That is a medical order. So an advanced healthcare directive is a legal document. A HIPAA authorization is a legal document. The POLST is a medical order. What's the difference? Well, the difference is the advanced healthcare directive and HIPAA authorization says this person can decide for me, okay? The POLST says if I'm choking on a peanut, don't give me the Heimlich maneuver, or don't give me non-oral nutrition or hydration. Or if I'm having a heart attack, don't put the paddles on me, or whatever it is. These are typically the pink sheets. They're kind of like written on a little bit thicker paper. And many times you'll see these on someone's door, like at an assisted living facility. But this is really visible. So if the EMTs show up, they see that there's this POLST, which is an order, right? And I'm not suggesting you go out and do that, because that's something you do need to talk to your physician about. And that's something you really need some medical advice on. It's not really a legal document. It's more of a medical document. So that's kind of those three documents. The advanced healthcare directive, HIPAA authorization are kind of in the lawyer's camp. And then the POLST is definitely something you want to talk about with your physician. So it's a pretty big deal of a document. Who acts as successor, trustee, and executor? So now we're going to move to, let's say that the proverbial cement truck, or a beer truck if you prefer, or an ice cream truck. You get to pick your truck. But imagine something happens and you don't die, but you are unable to do for yourself. You're mentally unable to do for yourself. So something to understand, and a living trust is a lot like a bucket. What do I mean by that? It's a vessel. It's something that, you have a bucket and you create this bucket. It's a living trust. It has a handle. The trustee is holding onto the handle, and then into this bucket, you put your house, your stocks, your bonds, your mutual funds. You don't put IRAs in your living trust. You don't put annuities in your living trust, and you typically don't put life insurance in your living trust, but pretty much everything else goes into the trust. Trustees must follow the terms of the trust. Now, when I say must follow, even if it doesn't make sense, okay? And I'm going to give you an example in a few minutes. Trustees, this is the person, the trustee is the person who handles a trust. An executor is a person who's in charge of a will. They're really the same role. So it's a lot like a soldier in the Army or an airman in the Air Force. It's the same role. It's just a different branch. And so you can kind of think of this as its own little branch. These are little branches of the law. So a trustee has duties and liabilities. A trustee doesn't have rights. Beneficiaries have all the rights. Beneficiaries don't have duties or liabilities. And a good way to think about this is a trustee has to be polite and professional and responsible and, trustworthy. A beneficiary can be a jerk, right? And they're not going to be penalized. Okay. So on a kind of broadly speaking, trustees can't be jerks. Okay. Beneficiaries have rights, they have no duties, and they have no liabilities. So the trustee is the one who's in charge of the money or the assets or whatever it is for the benefit of the beneficiary. Now, I did say a trustee is bound by the terms of the trust. So what you're going to want to do at your, Thanksgiving table, maybe if this is something you talk about in your family, hey, Johnny here is the successor trustee. And then if Johnny can't do it, then Sally is the successor trustee. Okay. If that's a topic of conversation, you can have that. If that's a taboo subject in your family, you might want to do it one-on-one, right? You might want to pull them aside as the football game's going on, or you're eating pie or something. Talk to them about that and just check in with them. Do they want to keep doing it? They're named. Have they moved out of state? Have they moved out of the country? Moving out of the United States is a whole separate issue. But I would say consider having a trust protector. Here's why. Trustees must follow the terms of the trust. A trust protector can change the terms of the trust. So here's the example I've given many times. Let's say that your living trust says the trustee has to drive from Los Angeles to San Francisco, and the trustee shall take Highway 99. Now, for those of you who drive between LA and San Francisco, you know that Highway 5 is a lot faster, okay, because there are just fewer towns. A trustee would have to take Highway 99. A trust protector can change that provision and say, no, the trustee can take Highway 5. Okay, so that's an example of why you would want a trust protector, because it makes things better, because the way the trust is written may be suboptimal. And once somebody passes away, you have to go to court to modify a trust. And a trust protector is a person who has power over the trust, but is not the trustee, can modify certain provisions of the trust. Can't say people don't inherit, but it's a really great, it's a great tool, and that's something we use frequently in our firm. And something else is trustees get to do the job. They don't have to do the job. What do I mean by that? It is an honor. If somebody names you as successor trustee, it's an honor. It's something that you'll remember for the rest of your life. It's a lot of work, but it's not like, oh, I have to do it. No, you get to do it. And that's a really cool thing. So I think there's a positive aspect of this. But again, it's holidays. Look at your estate plan, size up the people. You know, is this person really who I want managing my money if I have a stroke? Right. And you may want to change. And one thing you can do, a little bit of a hack, is put a reminder in your holiday decoration box. So whether it's, I don't know, Halloween or Thanksgiving, most people have these kind of decoration boxes because you decorate your house. You can put a note in there. Hey, check the estate plan. So it's a great time to just, sit down, pour yourself a nice cup of tea or something, and look at your estate plan and make sure the people you've named, in there are the people who still should be in there, right? And if you need to make a change, don't write on your trust. Okay. You need to check in with a lawyer a savvy lawyer who knows what he or she's doing. So an estate plan typically involves a living trust. And for many of our clients, they do have irrevocable trusts. They can involve limited liability companies, corporations, partnerships, wills, and durable powers of attorney, and for property and healthcare and medical directives. Now, these documents, many of these involve what are called fiduciary relationships. So fiduciary comes from fides in Latin, meaning faithful. You have to have somebody who's trustworthy, okay? The word trust has trust in it. This person must be trustworthy. So if you're at the Thanksgiving table and you go, I named my daughter as successor trustee 15 years ago, and I really don't like what's happened in her life. She's gone through 2 bankruptcies. She's like 3 divorces or whatever it is. I mean, I'm painting a really horrible picture, but she may not be the best choice. You may want to switch her for somebody else. And I think too often trusts are associated with the idle rich. Trusts are very versatile instruments that can be used for different purposes to achieve different goals. And so a lot of times we'll use a trust to lend money to a child for a variety of reasons. And that might be a funded, irrevocable trust that's maybe an incomplete gift or whatever it is. I know I'm throwing some technical stuff out there, but these are tools. These are specific tools used for specific purposes. But there are 6 broad categories of trusts. There's a living trust that's created while someone's alive. And then there's a testamentary or a dead trust that's created by a will after somebody dies. And then funded trust. What does trust funding mean? It means titling the assets in the trust. So too often people's assets or trusts are unfunded. So this may be a good time. You've got your property taxes are due. They're delinquent if they're paid after December 10th. Now's a good time to look at your property tax statement. And here's a little bit of a hack. If you look at your property tax statement and it does not have trust in there or trustee anywhere, and it's your property, that property may not be in your trust. Now, it may be in your living trust, but if it doesn't say trust on the property tax bill, it probably is not in the trust. And that's where you'd want to reach out to a lawyer and you would say, hey, can you find out if this property is in the trust or what's the story? Frequently, if people refinance, now interest rates have gone up. We're not really seeing any refinancing activity right now, right? But historically, rates have been going down for decades. And many times when it's a busy market, when there are a lot of loans happening, the underwriters don't want to deal with the living trust. And so they'll say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you've got to take that property out of your trust you refinance your loan, and you say, great, refinance, drop my payment, drop my interest rate, I'm good to go. Well, that property's still out of the trust. And so one of the more common things we do for clients is we put that property back into the trust. So meaning through a deed, we put that property back into the living trust. Again, if your property tax bill says, does not have a trust on it, does not have the word trust or trustee, it very well may be outside of your living trust. So something to pay attention to. Now, what is a trust? Fundamentally, you give something to someone else to be held for a third person's benefit. While you're alive, you have all three roles, but if you become incapacitated or pass away, you're removed from one or two of those roles, maybe three. So we have an example here. Owen, who's the owner. Owen creates a living trust, puts his assets into it. Owen is trustee and beneficiary while Owen's living, kind of a typical living trust. When Owen dies, if you're dead, you can't be trustee. Abel becomes the trustee and holds the late Owen's assets, right? Because you can't take it with you. I'm sorry. It's in my book, Savvy Estate Planning. No one's been able to take it with them. So I know this is Captain Obvious stuff, but when you die, your stuff stays here and it's going to go somewhere. It just doesn't evaporate. It doesn't go away. Someone's going to end up with it. Owen's assets are held for the benefit of Baker, who is Owen's son. Now, Abel is a beneficiary. Abel is a fiduciary. What does that mean? It's fides. Abel has to be faithful to Baker, right? So Abel has duties and liabilities. Baker's a beneficiary and has rights, but no duties. Baker can be a jerk, okay? If you're a beneficiary, I'm not suggesting you be a jerk, but I'm driving home the point that if you're a trustee, there's a lot more work to do than being a beneficiary. A beneficiary effectively is along for the ride, and they can cause trustees a lot of headache and heartache. Again, Abel must follow the terms of the trust as written, and a trust protector can change those terms. But look, let's say Owen did his estate plan in 2001, and that's 21 years ago. When Baker was a little boy, is Abel still the right choice to serve as trustee? You know, a lot of people do these living trusts and they set it and forget it. That's a bad idea. We meet with a lot of people. They say, I haven't looked at my estate plan for 20 years. And think about what the world was like in 2001 compared to now, right? Think about the relationships with your friends. I mean, Owen may not even be in contact with Abel anymore if it's a friend, right? And they may have moved or whatever it is. Now, is Abel ready, willing, and able, and it's a little redundant, to do the job of successor trustee? The term successor trustee means somebody who's kind of laying in wait or the standby trustee. So if Owen is the trustee, when Owen stops serving as trustee, the named successor trustee becomes the trustee. Is Baker married? When Baker inherits it, will it be lost to divorce or creditors? And you know, on another level, does Owen care? The fact that he did an estate plan probably cares. Most people don't do any estate plan. I think the number 60% of people never even do an estate plan. So some people just don't care enough. The fact that you're watching this probably means you care. I do want to talk about long-term care. We have a couple of questions here. Let me pull these up here. Homa asks, I have to set the IRA trust, but you say that I have to do a pour over when I die, or set up the IRA trust and transfer the securities to the trust while alive. Homa, on an IRA trust, you have an IRA and the beneficiary is your IRA trust. So that trust gets funded. That is an irrevocable. That's not a testamentary trust. It is typically an irrevocable trust that is unfunded, that becomes funded when you pass away, and then your IRA goes into the IRA trust. Anita asks, with the trust protector, does that give trustee the power to change things a bit if it makes more sense at that time? Yes, Anita, great question. So this is why a trust protector is important, because things change, people change, circumstances change. And I'll give you the classic example. We had a client who owned a ranch with he owned 50% of a ranch with his parents in Northern California. And he got the other half of the ranch in mom and dad's estate plan. Well, mom and dad moved to Texas. They sold the California ranch. They bought a Texas ranch, but they didn't change their estate plan. Well, everyone in the family knew that the son who owned half the ranch with the parents was supposed to get the ranch. So the trust protector was able, with the consent of everyone, and this is really, really important, with the consent of all interested parties, the trust protector was able to change the terms of the trust so that that son got the Texas ranch, the other half of the Texas ranch. Had there been no successor trustee, they would have had to go to court in one of the many courts in Texas. Who knows what would have happened, right? Who knows? So long-term care, what is long-term care? Long-term care is this descriptor. This term is thrown around a lot, and the abbreviation is LTC, and it will end up abbreviating that on the next few slides. So I would describe long-term care as a bundle of services designed to meet a person's health, typically personal care needs during a short or a long period of time. So this is where it gets a little confusing. Long-term care can mean 2 weeks of care. That's considered long-term care. Okay. It could be 2 years. It could be 20 years. Long-term care is different than short-term care, like in a hospital. You go to a hospital to get better and you're discharged. That's not going to be long-term care. All right. This ideally lets people live an independent life for as long as possible. Most people want to live as independent of a life. It's just human nature, as is possible. But sometimes they can't perform everyday functions. So who does this? Most of the time, this happens in the home, and it's family members and friends who are unpaid caregivers. And I see this in my own life with people I care about that may need help. You just chip in, right? They're friends, they're family. You just do it. It's the right thing to do. This can include adult daycare and nursing homes. Adult daycare is a great program. So if you're not familiar with adult daycare, it's basically you take an elder to the adult daycare center and you drop them off at 8, you pick them up at 5, and there's activities and their meals. And my mother-in-law, before she was unable to continue going to that when she was suffering from dementia, had a great time. So it was just, she really looked forward to it. And that is how some long-term care is provided. Of course, at 5 o'clock, you got to go home and you've got to figure that out. But I would say the most common care is personal care. And these are the activities of daily living. You might have heard of these: bathing, dressing, grooming, using the toilet, eating, moving around, getting out of bed into a chair, that kind of moving around. Very, very important to pay attention to this, because this involves not only the activities of daily living, but it can be meals, transportation services. Sometimes they're free, sometimes they're fee-based. But I will tell you, many times there is a triggering event. So there's something that happens. A bad fall. My father-in-law had a bad fall, and he went from living in assisted living to a boarding care, right? A 6-bed facility. So that was a triggering event. It can be a heart attack. It can be a stroke. And what ends up happening is, you get your loved one situated in a place, everything's fine, and then they have a fall, and you're like, your whole world is turned upside down for a period of time, and you just have to deal with it. It is expensive, okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But it can also be developed gradually. But I will say that we often do see a triggering event. Something happens, an illness, a fall. Those are things that really that prompt a change in how the person's living and a change in their care. So, how does this relate to Thanksgiving? Look around the table. All right. They're typically at a Thanksgiving dinner. There is a diversity of age. You'll have older people and younger people. It's the nature of the holiday. Everyone comes together. And this is something that I think is a taboo subject. This is probably something that merits some form of discussion. Again, this may not be at the table with everyone there. This may be a sidebar discussion. This may be a discussion of the kids. It may be, if you're going to visit parents, you may want to take one parent aside who's kind of the caregiver parent and say, look, we need a game plan, right? Because I see, you're taking care of dad, mom, you're taking care of dad, which is very common, super common, and it's wearing you out. 60% of the time, the spouse who is the caregiver dies before the person receiving the care. It literally happened to my grandmother. She was taking care of my grandfather for a very long time. She had a heart attack and passed away. And it just wore her out. Okay. So this is something you really need to pay attention to this. Who needs long-term care? It is really hard to predict who's going to need it. This is a tough one because it's such a consuming aspect of the end of someone's life, meaning it consumes the caregivers. It really consumes their life and really can kind of take over. But it's really hard to predict. There are factors. Obviously, the older you are, the more likely you are to require long-term care. Women are at higher risk than men because women live longer. They just are. And many times a woman takes care of the husband. So women live longer. Single people are more likely to need care than a married couple, right? Because you've got that support that, two frail people leaning on each other is better than one frail person not leaning on anyone, right? I think that's kind of the logic there. Bad choices, bad diet and exercise habits obviously can increase the risk. Health and family history is there. And sleep. I went and saw a world-renowned sleep expert speak last night, and it was a real eye-opener. A little bit of an oxymoron with talking about sleep. It was not an eye closer, but it was definitely an eye-opener, and how the importance of sleep in preventing dementia and maintaining good mental and physical health. So very important to get sleep. You're supposed to get between 7 and 9 hours a night. No human, this is what he said, he's the expert, humans cannot live on 6 hours of sleep. It's just not gonna happen. So you need to think about what your long-term care plan is. This is something that can be a topic, but again, older people, it depends on the person. They're like, quit talking about all this long-term care stuff. You're driving me nuts. Other people are like, yeah, I've got neuropathy and I know I'm having a hard time getting around and we might need to make some modifications to the house. We might need some care, whatever it is. Obviously you've got to figure out what's appropriate to talk about and not. Many people buy long-term care insurance. So what is long-term care insurance? It insures the risk of paying for long-term care if you need it. There's an old way versus a new way. The old way is you pay whatever monthly forever. The new way is, and we have an example here. So Betty has an old policy of life insurance with $100,000 cash value. Betty can exchange that policy for a new life insurance policy with a long-term care rider. So that's that you give the insurance company $100,000 and they say, all right, we'll give you $300,000 in coverage. And if you never use that, your kids inherit the $100,000. And if you do use it, then you use it. So it's not use it or lose it. It's a little bit different. If you don't use it, you don't lose it, right? So it's not use it or lose it, but if you don't use it, you don't lose it. So a little bit of a variation there. If you do have long-term care insurance, please let the people know that are in charge of your financial affairs that you have it, because some people just don't know, okay? And especially these ones where you may put in $100,000 cash value, you may just be getting a statement once a year. And so if your statement arrives in October and you have a need in November, it may be 11 months before they're going to get another statement from the insurance company. So it's something you would want to include in your estate plan. It's something that we note in our files when clients have long-term care insurance. Is there a name? Anita asked Jim, is there a name of the program for when you take your loved one at 8 and pick up at 5 for daily activities only? Yeah, it's adult daycare. And Anita, the adult daycare centers are, they're kind of all over the place. And that is called adult daycare. So kind of like daycare is a lot for kids, little kids. This is the adult daycare. So that's where you would take the older one. So personal property, aka your stuff. For those of you who are George Carlin fans, this is kind of a famous bit he did. We all have stuff and we're pretty particular about our stuff. We move it around with us. It's hard for some of us to get rid of it. And some of us don't like our stuff mixed up with other people's stuff, right? So division of stuff, personal property. This can be a bitter knockdown, drag out. Okay. I have seen this. I wrote about it in my book. One of the first cases I had, litigation cases, when I did trust and estate litigation, which is definitely a young man's game or young woman's game. One of the first cases I had, they fought over a Howdy Doody doll. Like, are you kidding me? Seriously. So division of stuff typically occurs when someone dies. But what we're seeing now is a pattern where as people downsize, they're going from a bigger house to a smaller house, or they're maybe going from a smaller house to a room. There simply isn't enough room for your stuff. And so what can you do? You can donate it, you can throw it away, you can give it away, you can sell it. And this is where people might say, well, Mom, you're going into assisted living and, grandma's China. I've always wanted that. And that conversation kind of starts. I would say peaceful downsizing is possible. Okay. It can be an emotional and physical drain or adjustment for everyone. Okay. And I'm telling you, aging we all age. Okay. We're all in it together. I have seen so much happen with my own parents and my wife's parents, and in my career, my 27 plus years as a lawyer. Um, this is a real emotional process you go through. Okay. And I think, a lot of lawyers don't even talk about that. But this is a really tough, it can be really tough on people. And I think it's important to, if you're having a hard time with it, someone else is probably having a hard time with it. I think it's really important to step outside of yourself. This is a little bit of emotional intelligence, and really have empathy for the person that you may be butting heads with. And I know it can be hard. I know some people, they say, well, Sally got that red bike for Christmas in 1962 and I didn't, and I'm still mad at Sally. Um, that's real. Those are real emotions. So we have a question. Joy asks, should you put your long-term care disability policy in your trust? Interesting. I think it would depend on the policy. I would say that is one that you might be able to put in, but you might not. And it really depends on how the policy is written. I would say, if I had to guess, probably not in the trust, but I would say we would have to take a look at that. That's where you would use your durable power of attorney. And that's why we do a durable power of attorney and a trust, because if you're the owner of that policy, and that policy has beneficiaries, you may want to have that money paid out directly to the beneficiary. You may want to have it flow through your living trust. It just depends on how your trust is written. So what do we do in our firm with stuff? So there are two ways. Well, there's the old way, I guess, which is you get little stickies and you put it on the bottom of whatever and you write someone's name on it. I think you can see why that may not be a good idea. They can fall off, they can get switched. We have, and I use George Carlin, full disclosure. George Carlin was not my client. He did pass away. He was not my client. This is just completely made up. But he sets up this living trust, and he has a personal property distribution page. This is at the end of his estate plan. Now, do not write on your estate planning documents. Don't do it unless your lawyer says it's okay, and only write on it where your lawyer says it's okay. So this is one where you could write in on the description, I give my, whatever it is, to this person. And it's, maybe when one person passes, if you happen to be married, is it when you pass away, even though your spouse might be living? Well, you would designate that or not. But we let our clients write on their estate plan when it comes to personal property, because what ends up happening is this changes over time. So if you downsize, right? Imagine you've got your house, you've got all your stuff. You start aging, you start moving to a different location, you might be giving away your stuff, okay? And that's one of the problems if it's written into the estate plan and you say, well, I give my 10-ounce gold bar to so-and-so, and then when you die, you look around, you go, where's the 10-ounce gold bar, right? That's a pretty valuable asset. And so it's good to be able to write here, and you could, line it out if, given to this person on such and such a date. So this is the place where you can write in. But that's where you write who gets your stuff. If you have a conflict, okay, if there is a conflict in the who gets what, all right, if there's not clear guidance, let's say you don't have one of these in your estate plan, or it's blank, right, or there's a conflict. There is a company called Fair Split. It was actually developed by one of my clients. Years ago, we had a conversation and he went off and did this company. And Fair Split's used in divorce a lot. You can see why, right? Both people want that thing, but this is software that is very robust and allows you to inventory assets, and then people can pick what they want. So it's a little bit of an auction system in a sense. There's not necessarily money ascribed to it, but you get a certain amount of points or whatever it is, but there's a process for it. And here's the link to fairsplit.com. So we covered a lot of ground. We talked about, things to think about discussing at the Thanksgiving table. I think the big takeaway, gratitude. Express gratitude and tell people you love them. We still talk about my uncle. We still talk about him saying how much he loved his wife and his daughters, and that meant so much to them. And that really has become kind of his legacy. So a big part of it. And people just get warm fuzzies when they think about it. So that's something really to be mindful of. And then, a lot of the rest of these are estate planning type issues. I would say use, if you feel it's appropriate to talk about it at the table, go ahead and talk about it. But if you're like, oh yeah, I don't know, you may want to do a one-on-one, or you may want to go to a different place. But these are sort of topics to talk about. Long-term care, if you want help with long-term care insurance, go to our YouTube page. Christina Lindsay Orta and the people at Ascent Wealth Management. I've done webinars with them. That's a great place to find the resources on how to do it. And we'll put, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll have some links where to those webinars and to Ascent as well. So we do have offices in Northern and Southern California. And if you do call us and you say, yeah, Jim, I want to set up my estate plan or I'm, do that IRA trust or whatever it is. So when you call our firm or schedule online, what happens? Okay. You will be talking with a client specialist, not a lawyer. So the lawyers don't have those initial calls. Let us know if you want to update or create an estate plan, or if someone's passed, because that goes two separate departments, if you will. So people who are alive and they're redoing their own estate plan, we have a whole crew of people that work on that, and then we have a whole separate crew when somebody passes away. So because it's really separate processes, and really tell us your estate planning and tax goals. If you say, hey, I want to preserve Prop 13, I want to take advantage of Prop 19, I want to minimize income tax, I'm really worried about death taxes. Let us know, and then we can get you to the right people. Don't ask for pricing. Only attorneys can quote legal fees, and really don't ask for legal advice. I know that with legal advice, the old joke is, hello, lawyer, can I get 20 minutes free legal advice to go over my legal issue? Yeah, that, it doesn't really work that way. So the goal of the appointment is to set, the goal of the call is to set an appointment with a lawyer and go over your individual legal situation. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way it'll pop up in your feed. And if you like what we're doing, watch us on, give us a review on Google. And again, here's our next webinar coming up. This is business owners' key estate and tax planning issues. So very important stuff. We'll be going over that. And if you have any questions, you can please submit those questions, and I'll give you a couple minutes. But keep watching. If you're watching on YouTube, don't go anywhere, because there'll be another video popping up right after this one. Bye-bye.